This is WNBC for New York.
Good evening, I'm Sue Simmons.
And I'm Chuck Scarborough.
This time tomorrow, William Jefferson Clinton will be President of the United States.
Well, the pageantry and the hoopla continue tonight in Washington, D.C., and it's just a warm-up for the big day tomorrow. And in an hour, as a goodwill gesture to Mr. Clinton, Saddam Hussein will begin a ceasefire in the Persian Gulf. Two events merging. While the torch is handed from President Bush to Bill Clinton, Saddam may not be far from their thoughts. We begin our team coverage with News 4's Steve Handelsman. Steve?
Good evening from the White House. Well, just 13 hours now, and Iraq will be Bill Clinton's problem. Clinton's big question tonight: does Saddam's latest move mean a breakthrough in this crisis, or just a break in the fighting? UN inspectors tonight are taking Saddam at his word. They're preparing for the first time in 2 weeks to resume flying to look for banned Iraqi weapons. Saddam's inaugural gift to Bill Clinton is a pledge to stop grounding UN flights and to stop menacing coalition warplanes on patrols in the no-fly zones. But on the eve of his inauguration tonight, Bill Clinton is wary, not grateful. He said Saddam is not reliable, and Clinton's ready, if Saddam misbehaves, to give him what he got again today from George Bush. This morning, a US F-4 pilot blasted an Iraqi radar site when the Iraqis aimed their sensors at his jet. An hour later in the north, a US pilot reported he'd been fired on. So a pair of US jets went back and dropped cluster bombs on the Iraqi gunners.
And why are we continuing these attacks? Because there continue to be threats against coalition aircraft in the south and in the north, and because Saddam Hussein hasn't fully complied with the resolutions.
Outgoing Pentagon spokesman Pete Williams said a ceasefire is not enough, that Iraq must dismantle and store its missiles. The Pentagon moved a second carrier closer to Iraq and moved in Patriot missiles to protect Kuwait. UN Secretary General Boutros Ghali said he wants 3,600 armed UN peacekeepers to join U.S. troops just sent to secure the Kuwaiti border. Despite Saddam's promise of a ceasefire, more weapons, not fewer, are arrayed against him. And Bill Clinton is vowing that one thing that will not change in this town tomorrow is the firm U.S. policy toward Iraq. I'm Steve Handelsman at the White House. Back to you.
Steve, thank you. The Vatican now says at Iraq's request, it will urge the United Nations to begin a dialogue to end the crisis in the Gulf.
Well, it could be a sleepless night for Bill and Hillary Clinton as they get ready to take their place in the history books. Tomorrow, they rise early as they get ready for a full day of ceremony and celebration. First, a visit with George Bush. The swearing in is set for noon, and at 2:30 there will be a parade from the Capitol to the White House.
Well, Clinton's going to have a very full day tomorrow, and inaugural eve is obviously, as you know, very busy too.
Celebration continues into the night for a lot of folks who travel to Washington to experience the inauguration. We have reports from News 4's Carol Jenkins and Gabe Pressman. First, Carol.
Thank you, Sue. Well, the anticipation here has reached, as you can imagine, a fever pitch. But there were some signs today that the enormity of his task has finally hit Bill Clinton. He spent much of the day gathering strength to get him through tomorrow and beyond. This morning, he made a personal pilgrimage to the gravesite of President John Kennedy. The president, he says, inspired him on to public life. He knelt before the eternal flame in prayer as he prepares to take the very same oath John Kennedy did.
Ladies and gentlemen, President-elect Bill Clinton.
After spending several hours polishing up his inaugural address, William Jefferson Clinton took Hillary Rodham Clinton out for the last time as private citizens. The presidential gala here, the largest and last pre-inaugural event, packed with premier entertainers, family and friends reminiscing, and downright democratic rejoicing.
When George Washington took the oath of office, it was a pretty sparse affair. You know, maybe a couple of fifes, a drum, new set of wooden teeth. Those were the only highlights of his inaugural.
The Clintons loved it.
It's 8:45. I know, I hope and pray that you really feel fine.
Earlier in the day, Bill Clinton's mood was more serious as he addressed a gathering of governors. He encouraged them to tell it to him straight if they thought he was getting things wrong.
I did not run for this job just to warm the seat. I desperately want to make a difference.
At an Emily's List luncheon today, evidence of a difference. 4,200 people, mostly women, celebrating the gains of women in politics. In attendance, Clinton appointees Carol Browner to the EPA and Health and Human Services Secretary-designate Donna Shalala.
And I'm so excited because we're going to have women elected to office, and we've already elected some. We're going to have women appointed to higher office. For those that don't think there has been any change in this country, they should come here today.
It is expected that President Clinton will sign executive orders before the week is out, but tonight, one last night of lightness before the burdens of this office settle in heavily.
Then I dreamed that God would be forgiving.
Well, there were countless gatherings here tonight where Bill Clinton's plans were topic. Gabe Pressman was at one of those gatherings, right, Gabe?
Yes, and I just came from the first Hispanic Democratic inaugural gala in American history. And it was both a recognition and a celebration of the new importance of Hispanic voters in American politics.
There was Mexican and salsa music, and they danced under the slogan, Adelante con Clinton, ahead with Clinton. At the Mellon Auditorium, they were celebrating not only Bill Clinton's victory, but what many Latinos see as their new political maturity. Liberals, conservatives, middle-of-the-roaders burying bitter differences over issues like abortion and uniting now over economic issues, civil rights, education.
What do you see out there?
I see hope. I see a lot of enthusiasm. I see opportunities. I see empowerment.
For the Latino community is that we've arrived in the sense that we are an important component of the people that elected Bill Clinton.
This is a good time for us to celebrate because we got a new administration, new things are going to happen for this country.
They were taking pride tonight, too, in the fact that Clinton has chosen for cabinet positions Federico Pena in transportation and Henry Cisneros in housing.
We're at the table and that we can be policymakers. There's not just one Latino in the cabinet, there are two.
Well, the extent to which Bill Clinton is talking about housing, jobs, education, infrastructure, health care, they are our issues, and our issues are America's issues at this point.
And so they're still dancing into the night, Carol, celebrating not only Bill Clinton's impending inauguration tomorrow, but their own sense of empowerment and their hope for the future.
Right, well, there is nothing dubious or tenuous about the goings-on here. Tomorrow, the 42nd President of the United States will be sworn in, and Gabe and I will be here to report all of that to you. We'll see you then.
Well, all right, thank you. Our police in Miami are looking for a killer tonight. They know who he is because of the crime, which was recorded by a television camera, and it was graphically recorded. Television viewers across the country saw portions of the tragedy, and news departments had to decide just how much to show. News 4's Lou Young joins us now with this story. Lou?
Well, Chuck, the cold-blooded murder of Maritza Martin Munoz might have gone unnoticed in South Florida, but for the peculiar fact that it happened in front of a television camera. Now, the story began as a tabloid TV look at a teenager's suicide. It turned into a frightening document of domestic violence. A distraught father pumped 12 bullets into his former wife. How much do you care to see?
Emilio Nunez was putting flowers on his daughter's grave as a news crew from a Spanish-language network taped. His former wife arrived at the cemetery unexpectedly. As you watch this, the woman is seconds from being murdered. The reporter tried to talk with the woman. Nunez, who had apparently threatened his ex-wife before, suddenly lunged past the reporter and began shooting. Cameraman Jorge Delgado continued to tape. The disturbing sequence that follows aired in its entirety on the Telemundo network as well as on NBC Nightly News. News 4 New York has decided not to show the actual shooting. The reporter and cameraman ran for their lives after the shooting. The gunman escaped. The NBC network received 400 protest calls, we're told, here in New York alone. NBC's Miami station, WTVJ, planned to rerun the tape on its late newscast. A spokesman said it's not as graphic as some war video or scenes from Somalia. It shows a real problem with domestic violence.
NBC News wouldn't comment tonight on his decision to run the tape. As for Emilio Nunez, he left his current wife and stepson behind at that cemetery and later ditched his car and is still being sought by South Florida police tonight. Chuck, Sue?
Thanks, Lou.
All right. Well, still ahead on News 4, the ugly custody battle between Woody and Mia could be over tonight. We'll have exclusive details. Angry charges involving Madonna and Joey Buttafuoco. Police collar a mob fugitive, and Al has a preview of the weather.
Well, Sue, it's pretty chilly out there tonight. And what about tomorrow as Bill Clinton becomes sworn in as our president? Well, I think you'll like the details as everyone's favorite son makes an appearance. We'll have the details as News 4 at 11 continues.
The worst of that feud between Woody Allen and Mia Farrow may be over. As News 4's John Miller reported exclusively at 5, the former lovers have reached a settlement in their child custody dispute. John has that story plus new details tonight.
After a heated hearing last week in which both sides charged abuse and manipulation of the children, lawyers for Woody Allen and Mia Farrow reached an agreement today. News 4 has learned that Mia Farrow will give in to both of Woody Allen's demands. That 7-year-old Dylan, the child who is at the eye of this storm, will go into therapy, and that Woody Allen can resume visits with his 4-year-old son, Satchel. Tonight, in a statement issued to News 4, Woody Allen said he would not press for visitation with Dylan just yet. Quoting now, "As much as I miss the little girl, I feel it's overwhelmingly in her best interest that she be allowed to get the psychological help her mother has withheld from her."
The longer or the deeper the hiatus that occurs between parent and child, especially at Satchel's age, is most detrimental to the child's best interests. He needs a father.
The Allen-Farrow mess was sparked by Allen's affair with Farrow's 21-year-old adopted daughter from a previous marriage. An angry Mia Farrow then leveled charges that Allen allegedly sexually abused his 7-year-old daughter Dylan, causing visitation with the other children to be cut off. After 7 months of trying to verify that charge, Connecticut authorities have still not found enough evidence to mount a prosecution. Tonight, Woody Allen and Mia Farrow are together, although not in the coziest circumstance. They're being interviewed at Yale New Haven Hospital by the team of experts. That team still trying to determine if there's any truth to the allegations leveled by Farrow that Woody Allen sexually abused Dylan. John Miller, News 4, New York.
Because of today's visitation agreement, a hearing scheduled for next week has been put off.
Well, tonight, Long Island kidnapping victim Katie Beers is experiencing a new kind of family life. News 4 has learned that Katie is now living with 2 foster parents and their 4 children. Also today, a grand jury indicted John Esposito, the family friend who admits keeping Katie in his homemade dungeon for 16 days. Sources say the indictment charges Esposito with molesting the 10-year-old in addition to kidnapping her. Katie also told police that Esposito threatened to hang himself on the day before he turned himself in.
Well, tonight, police still don't know who shot at Joey Buttafuoco yesterday morning at his Long Island auto body shop. But today, Buttafuoco's lawyer says a stunt by Madonna could have inspired the attack. That was on the most recent Saturday Night Live. On Sunday, Buttafuoco reportedly received a death threat. On Monday, he dodged a bullet. Buttafuoco's lawyer, who advised him during the Amy Fisher case, says the link to Madonna is not far-fetched.
Perhaps it was as a result of her statement, perhaps it wasn't. But somebody that has that type of following, before they do something like this, should at least think twice.
Well, no one was hurt in yesterday's shooting.
Well, in the words of the FBI, another day, another dawn. Today, after an intensive 2-year hunt, the feds finally caught up with the most wanted mobster in the United States, Anthony Gaspipe Queso. They found him in a secluded house in Mount Olive, New Jersey. Gaspipe was second in command in the Lucchese crime family. He earned his nickname by being pretty handy with a blowtorch, especially around bank safes full of money.
Straight ahead on News 4, confirmation hearings begin for a controversial Clinton appointee. There's a sign of a presidential change at a famous museum, and here's Len with a look at the day's sports.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Coming up, another coach spurns New York. So, George Young heads west to talk with yet another candidate. I'll have my suggestion of how to find a coach. The debut of Rangers goalie Corey Hirsch. Both the Rangers and Islanders go overtime. Seton Hall and Villanova go overtime as well, and we'll have the shot of the day. That's all coming up in sports.
New York fire officials are smoking hot after buying a pair of leaky fire boats that don't work. The 2 boats cost $7 million, but they have no spare parts, and now the boats are sitting idle in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And the city's considering a lawsuit against the New Orleans company that manufactured these Boats they consider now useless.
It's $7 million a pop?
You know what?
What?
It's the same company that made that $23 million space trailer. It's amazing. These guys are getting away with murder. I'll tell you, it's kind of chilly out there right now.
But that's your editorial statement for tonight.
I'm done. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. Let's check it out. It would have to be a very chilly night to get that fork in, and you'll see it is chilly. 29 degrees right now under clear skies. Our winds are coming out of the west at 6, relative humidity 53%, barometer holding steady. The tri-state area conditions at this hour, it's all the way down right now. If we could take a look at our current conditions, we could do that. Thank you. 18 degrees right now in White Plains, 19 Morristown, 18 at Islip, and 19 degrees Atlantic City. Now on the satellite picture, we will show you that we've got a big area of high pressure that is going to keep skies clear, but also keep things cold with light northerly winds and radiation cooling. No clouds overhead to hold in the heat. It's going to get chilly tonight, single digits north and west, low teens everywhere else. But the good news is that high pressure is going to keep things clear from Boston all the way down to Washington, D.C. Speaking of D.C., let's check out the inaugural weather. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., clear and cold, 32. 12 noon, when Bill Clinton gets sworn in as president, it should be sunny, a high of 38. 4 o'clock, sunshine and cool, 45. Then for the inaugural balls, partly cloudy and a temperature of 36 degrees. Our forecast for tonight, clear skies, single digits to low teens in the northern and western suburbs, upper teens to low 20s for the overnight lows. Then for tomorrow morning, you can expect mid-teens to mid-20s under sunny skies, but still kind of breezy, so it will feel even chillier out there. And the winds even pick up tomorrow, west-northwesterly, so with temperatures in the upper 30s to low 40s, it's going to feel cooler with sunshine, but breezy conditions. Wind chills will be a factor tomorrow. And as we move on into the week, well, things actually start warming up. For Wednesday, as we said, a high of 43 degrees. Thursday, partly sunny, 45. Some rain on Friday, but look at that, a high of 46. Saturday, variably cloudy, 42 degrees. Thickening clouds Sunday, and a temperature of 40 degrees. And just so you know, I've got a $3 million plunger for you, in case you're interested.
Thank you. And I just may be interested.
Okay.
All right, thank you. After this, illegal workers and a Clinton cabinet appointee, as News 4 continues. It is a dilemma which haunts working parents every day. How do you take care of the home and the kids while you're out earning a paycheck?
Well, some people hire illegal household help, and most who do get away with it. But as Krista Bradford reports, one exception is Attorney General designate Zoe Baird.
The hiring of this couple and our failure to pay the appropriate taxes at the time was wrong, and I take full responsibility for it.
If confirmed, Zoe Baird would be the first woman attorney general in the nation, but she certainly is not the only government appointee who has utilized illegal child care by undocumented workers. So why is she the first to be confronted by the controversy? Editor-in-chief of Working Mother magazine, Judson Colbreth.
We're setting her up, or women in general, for a higher standard than we are men. How many Senate hearings have you listened to where they quizzed men on their child care arrangements or any household help?
Many illegal workers come from Central and South America, and often they are exploited. But just as often, American mothers feel they have no other choice. Baird said she could not find an American to care for her now 3-year-old son, so she hired a Peruvian couple and voluntarily informed the government of this when she sponsored them in a program which would make them legal workers.
The process called for us to disclose to the Labor Department and the INS that an undocumented worker was in our employ and living in our home, which we did.
The government has turned their heads for over 20 years. They've looked the other way as this underground nanny market has flourished.
Baird has paid a $3,000 immigration fine and $12,000 in back Social Security taxes. And now it is likely that she will be confirmed as Attorney General, overseeing enforcement of immigration law. Krista Bradford, News 4, New York.
There are some 11 million children who are candidates for daycare, but only 86,000 child care centers. And most are only open during the day shift.
Well, sports is next as we continue for you on News 4. Will Denver's Dan Reeves be wearing his suit and tie on the sidelines of the Meadowlands? Len Berman tackles that question as we continue. Well, it's time for Len Sports, and they still have the help wanted sign hanging over in the Meadowlands?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we're going to, that leads into something we have to later on. Oh, chalk up another one who doesn't love New York. Dave Wanstead turned down the Giants for the Bears. Perhaps he didn't want to compete with his friend Jimmy Johnson, the NFC East. He coaches Dallas. Maybe that's why he ultimately chose Chicago and Bears president Mike McCaskey. So, Giants general manager George Young immediately headed to Denver to talk with former Broncos coach Dan Reeves. How serious was the Giants' pursuit of Wannstedt?
The talks were very intense in New York. That was as far as it really went. The reasons were easy. I mean, after Mike and I visited and I was very comfortable with the direction that the organization was going, I had a strong feeling for the Bears all along. And personally, with my family, we're excited about living in Chicago.
And here is Dan Reeves in Denver today after he met with George Young for 4 hours in a hotel near the Denver airport. All Reeves would say off camera is that the two exchanged ideas. Bill Parcells, who had defeated Reeves in Super Bowl 21, is rumored to be heading to New England. Now, I can't blame George Young for wanting to start over. After all, Parcells did leave the Giants high and dry 2 years ago. But, George, just don't say whoever you get was your first choice all along. The Rangers in Detroit tonight. The NHL debut of 20-year-old goalie Corey Hirsch. Here he stopped Steve Yzerman. Hirsch with 30 saves on the 32 shots he faced. Third period, far side, Mark Messier goes down, injures his hand. He is undergoing x-rays to determine the extent of that injury. Now, 2 on Detroit, 6 minutes left. Darren Turcotte, shorthanded, beats Tim Cheveldae. That tied at 2-2. That's how it ended. And the Islanders hosting Boston at the Coliseum tonight. The Islanders in the home white, they too trailed 2-1 in the third. Tom Curver's the blast through John Blue's legs. That tied it 2-2 midway through the third. Now late in the game, the Islanders on a 2-on-1 break. Steve Thomas's shot, and it goes off his mask as he goes down. That was the last big chance. Wasn't hurt. Like the Rangers, the Islanders wound up tied 2-2. The NBA will announce tomorrow what, if anything, they'll do about Charles Barkley. He criticized the officials at the Garden yesterday. Along the way, he made some racial comments which did seem inappropriate, particularly on Martin Luther King's holiday. In college basketball tonight, Villanova in the dark against Seton Hall. Lance Miller for the Villanova Wildcats ties the game with 22 seconds left. Now, score tied. 2 seconds left. Karnisovas steals, throws it up, and almost in. That forced overtime. Seton Hall went on to win it 66-61, and Rutgers beat Utah State 113-93. Boxing tonight in Boise, Idaho. It's WBA middleweight champion Reggie Johnson against Ki-Yoon Song. The Korean sticking his tongue out at Johnson and raising his arms as if to say, "You are not hurting me." That was the 7th round. He was hurt. It was stopped in the 8th. Johnson defending his title. At the Australian Open, Yvonne Lendl ousted in the first round today by Christian Bergström of Sweden. Chris Bailey in the far court against Michael Chang. Watch Chang here, behind the back. Cute little shot. Not only does he win the point, he wins the match in straight sets. You know, maybe the Giants are taking the wrong approach in looking for a coach. Maybe they should place an ad in the newspapers. As you were saying, help wanted. As a public service, we've written the ad for them. Help wanted, must be willing to locate, must be willing to follow orders of General Manager George Young, must like working with people, that's pretty important, and you must love New York. All inquiries call George Young at Giant Stadium, and I know that George sincerely appreciates our help.
He's going to slap you silly.
Well, he's in Denver talking to Reeves in a hotel room, so you're safe for at least the time of a flight back. Yeah, thanks, Len.
Thank you, Len. When we come back, President Bush gets the boot early. We'll have to explain that one. The countdown continues for the Clinton inauguration. The day begins with a prayer service. And after the swearing in and parade, there'll be dancing into the night, numerous inaugural balls. We'll have highlights on News 4.
Well, George Bush is still president for the next 12.5 hours, but not at one of London's major tourist attractions. This is Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, where Mr. Bush got a shove out the back door today. Oh, my. It was an unceremonious dumping of the 41st president.
It looks like Dana Carvey.
It does, exactly. It's kind of scary to look at it. Tomorrow, the museum's going to unveil its wax likeness of President Clinton. Mr. Bush is headed for storage. The museum says that's where he's going to stay unless history is particularly kind to him.
I hope he didn't see that tape.
No.
It's depressing.
It's disturbing. See you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.